If you're in your 40s or 50s and you've been working hard your entire life but still don't feel wealthy, this video is specifically for you. Not for the 25-year-old just starting out. For you. Because here's what nobody in finance ever says out loud. The decade you're in right now, between 45 and 60, is statistically the most powerful wealth-building window of your entire life. And most people waste it, not because they're lazy, not because they're bad with money, but because they believe they already missed their chance. Here's the number that stopped me cold when I first saw it. The average age of a first-time millionaire in America is 61. Not 35, not 45, 61. Which means if you're 48 right now, you are statistically on schedule. You just don't feel like it because nobody ever told you that. And I'm going to show you, using Federal Reserve data, that most people in your position are closer to $1 million than they've ever been and have absolutely no idea. Today, we're going to break down the three major wealth milestones: $100,000, $500,000, and $1 million. Not as a journey that started at 22, but as a map of exactly where you are today and what's realistically possible from here. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to see your situation very differently. The late Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner for over 6 decades, once said the first $100,000 is the hardest. He wasn't exaggerating. Think of it like pushing a car with a dead battery. For the first 100 feet, you're doing everything with your own muscle. The car isn't helping you at all. But once it starts rolling, once you hit that speed, the momentum takes over, and suddenly you're not pushing nearly as hard. That's exactly what $100,000 does to a portfolio. It starts rolling on its own. Here's why. At this stage, your money isn't doing the heavy lifting. You are. Every single dollar saved is a dollar you personally earned, budgeted, and protected from 100 different things trying to pull it away from you. Compound interest exists, but on $10,000 or $20,000, it barely moves the needle. You're essentially fighting the battle alone. So when does the average American actually cross $100,000 in net worth? Based on Federal Reserve data, most Americans hit this mark somewhere between their late 30s and early 40s. The median net worth for Americans aged 35 to 44 is about $135,600. Which means the midpoint of that age group has only recently passed the $100,000 line. So if you're 44 years old with $80,000 saved, you are not behind. You are within touching distance of a milestone that most Americans at your age have barely crossed. The race you think you're losing, you're actually in the middle of the pack. The difference is entirely what you do from here. If you're watching this in your 40s or 50s and you're not yet at $100,000, you are not alone. And more importantly, you are not done. What the next 5 years can look like if you make even 2 or 3 focused changes is a completely different story than the last 10. Now, I want to stop here and say something that most finance channels never say. A lot of people in their 40s and 50s have done everything roughly right. They worked hard. They raised kids, they kept the lights on, maybe they spent their 30s building someone else's dream, a business that didn't work out, a career path that got eliminated, an industry that moved overseas. Maybe they went through a divorce that reset the financial clock. Maybe a job loss wiped out 2 years of savings. Maybe a medical bill, one they didn't see coming, took everything they'd built and cut it in half overnight. And now they're sitting there looking at their account balance thinking, is it too late? I want to answer that question directly. No, it is not too late. And I want you to actually hear that, not as a motivational line, but as a mathematical fact. Because what I'm about to show you isn't inspiration, it's arithmetic. And the arithmetic at 50 is genuinely more powerful than it was at 30. Not metaphorically, actually, structurally, numerically more powerful. Here's what I mean. Once you clear $100,000, something changes fundamentally. Your money starts working alongside you instead of you working alone. Let me walk you through what this actually looks like. You're 48, you've got $100,000 invested. The market returns 8% this year, which is actually below the S&P 500's long-term historical average. You did nothing. You didn't look at it, you didn't touch it. January to December, you lived your life. And at the end of the year, your account has $8,000 more in it than it did on January 1st. That's roughly $667 a month, generated entirely by money you already saved. No extra hours, no side hustle, no second job. Now watch what happens when that becomes $200,000. That same 8% is now $16,000 a year, $1,333 a month, working while you sleep. At $50,000, that same return gives you $4,000. At $20,000, it's $1,600. The math compounds, and it compounds in your favor the bigger the base grows. This is the engine, and once it's running, it does not stop. That's why the journey from $100,000 to $500,000 is often significantly faster than the grind from $0 to $100,000. Not because people suddenly earn more, because their money finally joined the fight. Now let's talk about $500,000, and here's where I want to tell you something the financial industry almost never says. According to Federal Reserve data, only 10.5% of Americans between 18 and 39 have a net worth of $500,000 or more. For most people, the $500,000 mark doesn't arrive until their mid to late 40s or early 50s. The average net worth for Americans in their 40s is around $770,000, but the median, the number that reflects the actual typical person, is somewhere between $76,000 and $247,000, depending on whether you're in your early 40s or late 40s. So $500,000 by 40 is rare. It happens, but it puts you well ahead of 89% of your peers. Now here's the part nobody is telling you. And this is the most important thing in this entire video. Your 40s and 50s are typically when three things happen simultaneously that never happen at any other point in your life. Your income right now is probably the highest it has ever been in your life. Think about that for a moment. The salary, the experience, the professional value you've built over 25 years, it's all peaking right now, today, in this decade. That's point one. Point two, if your kids are grown or nearly grown, you are about to experience something that feels almost disorienting, a $1,500 to $3,000 per month increase in effective income without a single raise. That money was always there. It was just allocated somewhere else. Now it can go directly to work for you. Point three, your mortgage, if you bought 15 or 20 years ago, is either paid off or you're paying down equity at an accelerating rate. Your single largest expense is shrinking at the exact moment your income is peaking. Higher income, lower expenses, lower debt. All three at the same time. No 25-year-old has this. No 30-year-old has this. This specific combination exists for roughly a 10 to 15-year window in a person's life. You are in it right now. The question isn't whether you missed the boat. The question is whether you're going to use this window or spend it. Now, let me be honest with you about something. If you're behind where you thought you'd be at this age, some of that is your decisions. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But a lot of it isn't. Wages for middle-income Americans have been essentially flat, adjusted for inflation, for 25 years. Healthcare costs have tripled. Housing has become structurally unaffordable in most major cities. The cost of raising a child to 18 in America now exceeds $300,000. You were handed a 2024 economy with a 1985 playbook, and then blamed for not winning with it. That's not a character flaw, that's a structural mismatch. But here's the thing about structural mismatches. Once you see them clearly, you can work around them. And the tools available to you right now, legally, through your 401k, through catch-up provisions, through the income and expense window you're in, are specifically designed for this exact moment in your life. The system that made it harder also built you a side door. We're going to walk through it right now. Let me show you what I mean with two real people, both turning 50 this year. Person A spent their 40s doing what felt normal. Upgraded the house twice, leased a new car every 3 years, took on part of their kids' college debt, told themselves they'd get serious about saving once things settled down. They have $180,000 saved and a knot in their stomach every time retirement comes up in conversation. Person B had the same household income, went through a rough divorce at 44. Person B sat in a parking lot at 45 years old with $11,000 in a checking account and a legal settlement that had just finalized. They weren't thinking about becoming a millionaire. They were thinking about rent. But they made one decision, one that changed everything. Every raise went straight to the investment account before it touched their lifestyle. Every dollar the kids stopped needing went there automatically. They didn't out-earn person A. They out-automated them. And they never had to use willpower because the decision was made before the money ever arrived. They're sitting at $340,000 at 50, and they're on track for $1.1 million by 65. Same income, same starting point, completely different relationship with future dollars. Net worth isn't about what you earn. It's about the gap between what you make and what you keep, and what you keep doing with it. Now the big one, $1 million. About 80% of millionaires are over 50 years old. The median net worth for Americans aged 55 to 64 is around $364,000, which means even in that age range, the typical household still hasn't crossed $1 million. About 18% of U.S. households have a net worth of $1 million or more, which means roughly 4 out of 5 American families never reach this milestone in their entire lives. But here's the critical insight about the math once you hit $500,000, and this will permanently change how you think about time. Once your net worth reaches $500,000, you're not just halfway to $1 million in dollars, you're roughly 75% of the way there in time, because compound growth accelerates. Going from $500,000 to $1 million with consistent investing can take as little as 5 to 7 years, compared to the 15 to 20 years it took to build the first $500,000. Let me make this concrete. If you're 52 years old with $500,000 invested and you contribute $2,000 a month going forward, you will very likely cross $1 million before you turn 60. You are not starting over. You are in the final stretch of a race most people don't even realize they're still running. Now, here's something that was literally designed by Congress specifically for people in your situation. It's called the Super Catch-Up Provision. The standard 401k contribution limit in 2026 is $23,500 if you're under 50. If you're 50 or older, you can add an extra $7,500 catch-up contribution, bringing your total to $31,000 a year. But if you are between 60 and 63 years old, listen to this carefully, you can contribute up to $34,750 into your 401k in a single year. That is not a typo. $34,750 in 1 year, tax-advantaged. And if your employer matches even 50 cents on the dollar, you're looking at over $50,000 going into your retirement account in a single calendar year. If you're 60 years old and you max this out for just 4 years, just 4, and the market returns its historical average, you're looking at roughly $180,000 to $220,000 added to your retirement account from those 4 years alone, from a provision most people have never heard of. Congress essentially looked at the American middle class and said, "We know life happened to you. Here's your legal way back." Most people never use it because they never knew it existed. Now you have no excuse not to. The average age of a first-time millionaire in America is 61, not 35, not 40, 61, which means if you're 48 years old right now, you are exactly on the timeline of the average American millionaire. You just don't know it because you're in the middle of the story, not the end. The people who cross $1 million don't look back at their 50s as the years they fell behind. They look back at them as the years everything finally clicked. the years the income peaked and the expenses dropped, and they finally stopped waiting for permission to take it seriously. They used the catch-up provisions, they redirected the money that used to go to kids and debt. They stopped performing wealth and started building it. That is available to you right now, in this decade. You have time. The math is on your side. The tools exist. The window is open. What you do next is the only variable left. If you're in your 40s or 50s and you want to keep going deeper on this, next week we're breaking down exactly how to structure your 401k contributions in the 60 to 63 window to legally maximize that $34,750 provision step by step. Subscribe.